time, I don't have anything to add.
I'm
You
glad you
repeat that, Madeline? I
Um,
didn't hear.
just that um, if you feel the people who were here last time feel that you covered this well enough, we can go on. I don't have anything I particularly want to comment on.
I think that would be fine.
Are you okay to continue reading?
Okay. Or are you gone out with the beast of the field, and regards nothing but your bellies and pleasures? Doth it not greatly concern you to try your estate, seeing all must come speedily to an account for their lives and service? Are you such as spend your time and strength in watching and praying to the Father of spirits for yourselves and the people of God, that they may be kept in the time of temptation and assaults of the evil one, who seeks his advantage on the weak brethren, and for your enemies, that they may be delivered from under his power, who are captivated by him at his will, to fulfill his lusts and envy, and satisfy his wrath upon the innocent? And do you deny yourselves of your pleasures, profits, ease, and liberty, that you may hold forth a chaste conversation in the power and life of gentleness, meekness, faithfulness, and truth, exercising a conscience void of offense towards God and all men, that thereby you may shine forth in righteousness, so as to convince your enemies whom you pray for, thus following him who lays down his life for his enemies? Is this your war, and these your weapons? Is this your calling, and are you faithful to him that hath called you hereto, so as you can by no means bow to the God of this world, nor his ways, though it were to save your lives or credit in the world or estates, and yet can serve the meanest creature in God's way, though to the loss of all? I beseech you, be faithful to your own souls herein. Do you find nothing in you that calls or moves this way, or reproves the contrary? If there be, are you not such as quench the spirit, and put out your own eye, and denies the Lamb's call against your own lives? And if there be not, then are you not dead members cut off from Christ, and all your profession is but a lie, and without Christ you are in the world? Oh, that you would prove your own selves, for there be many deceitful workers at this day of his appearance, who do the work of the Lord negligently and deceitfully, and many do their own work instead of his, and many are called, and for a while abide, but in the time of hardship prove deceitful, and return to serve the world again, and take pleasure therein. Others are called and convinced, but come half out of the world, even as far as they can do it without loss or shame, but keep their covenant therewith still, in what makes most for their gain or earthly advantage or credit. Others have answered their call and been faithful the whole covenant of the Lamb against the prince of this world, so far as they have seen, but not minding the watch against the enemy, and not keeping low in the fear, and zealous in the light, have suffered the simplicity to be deceived, and are led back to the old beggarly rudiments of the world again, and take that for their perfection and growth, which once they had vomited up, and these expect great things in their work, but they are blinder than the rest, and more to be pitied, because of the simplicity that is deceived. Well, I finally reached a period there, so I think I'll stop.
And the text is in the chat.
Thanks thee for putting it in the chat, Autumn. And there's a lot in what Pat just read. And if I may, this reminds me uncomfortably, or actually comfortably, of the state I was in when I first started attending a friends meeting. I worked for an employer that, so far as I knew, did only evil, making advertising displays for liquor and tobacco products and beer and cosmetics that were tested on rabbits' eyes to prove that they were hypoallergenic, and the combination of drugs that stupefy and poison and cruelty to animals. It made me sick to go to work, and yet I felt I have to support my children. I don't have a choice. Eventually, the employer fired me. Hallelujah. But it was very painful. But I knew that at the Society of Friends, I would at least have people who would understand how disgusted I was with what I was doing for a living. And as I was reading James Nayler's words, I was thinking of all the ordained clergy of the Church of England who were eagerly looking for, can I get a better benefice? Could I be promoted to bishop, or maybe then to archbishop? And how dreadful it would be either to work in that industry and work with a bad conscience, or work with a numb conscience, thinking, oh, I'm doing just what the Lord would want me to do. I guess the short version of what I'm saying is, Nayler's words really resonate with me and horrify me when I think of the people who are following the false gospel of I'm okay, you're okay, we're all safe. We're doing something that we're not going to get in trouble for.
What this reminds me of is the parable of the sower and the seeds. And he goes on at some length about a particular way that the seeds can get smothered. But it's also making me think of others, just or maybe related things like kind of a hardness, that numbing maybe that John was speaking about a hardness where the seed doesn't even really begin to take root, or other times where it starts to take root, but then hard times come and people go back to old ways, and the kind of thing when the seed is just uh, strangled uh, in a variety of ways by one's culture, the expectations for success, the distractions. Yeah, it brings all that to mind for me.
One of the things that occurs to me that struck me in this is there has been much in Nayler's essay about the Lamb's War within each one of us. And that's the point often. But I notice a part in this here towards the bottom of page 8 where he is actually challenging people. What are you actually doing to spread the word more broadly? And there's an element in this which is it's like 1600s language for something which a lot of activists in Australia, and maybe in the US too, challenge us about being comfortable in our white privilege. So there's a sentence here that says, "And do you deny yourselves of your pleasures, profits, ease, and liberty, that you may hold forth a chaste conversation in the power and life of gentleness, meekness, faithfulness, and truth, exercising a conscience void towards God and all men, that you may shine forth in righteousness so as to convince your enemies, whom you pray for, thus following him who lays down his brackets own life for his enemies. Is this your war? These your weapons? Is this your calling?" So he's actually, in the old Catholic tradition, really saying, what's your vocation in life? And we face at the moment, we hear a bit about Australia because, you know, so many of us, me included, have a comfort which is a white privilege because it was our wealth is actually that supports us is stolen from the first peoples of this country. And there's a bit of it in the US too. And there's a diversity, isn't there, between those of us who are called to maintain the spiritual oasis of early Christian and early Quaker spirituality, and those who are called to change the world around them and challenge the world around them. And this happens at different stages of all our lives. But I'm just saying, I'm picking up the point here that he's also saying, you're doing the work inside you, but are you just comfortable at home? Are you noticing any call of what you're called to do? In the world around you?
like to delve into that a little bit. When my son got out of college, one of the first jobs that he got was working for an artist who worked on people's homes. And usually the people were extremely wealthy. And one of the jobs he had was a homeowner, I think it was in Bermuda, flew the whole crew, construction crew, of which my son was one, down to Bermuda to work on his home. And my son was really repelled by the excessive luxury, I guess. And there was a son in that home, and a young man, and my son was appalled or offended by this young man who had so much wealth, and he woke every day, I believe, the middle of the day, and spent the entire day playing video games. And I think that the kind of spiritual emptiness that that young man was exhibiting, even though he was extremely wealthy, is the kind of poverty that we as Christian ministers are to address. There can be economic poverty that can debilitate a person's life. But the life that is to be addressed by us is the spiritual life. And someone can be poor, or someone can be comfortable economically, or someone can be wealthy and yet still have either an impoverished spirit or one that is rich. And I think that our society loses the focus if it says that what our purpose is to make an equilibrium in our economic states, as if that would solve the problem that is in our society. But I don't see, in severe cases of economic deprivation, yes, I can see that could have a detrimental effect on someone's growth and capacities in life. But I think that the riches that can come in Christ is what we are called to implement, or to bring forward, or to make present for people. And I think that the economic issue is sometimes substituted for the spiritual issue because it's visible and because it's unjust. But riches don't ensure a sense of inward life. And neither does low economic status indicate an impoverishment of spiritual life. And I think that if our society had a better sense of that inward life that is in Christ, we would not be so at each other's throats about economics and other differences that exist in the material and psychological arenas. But because we don't have this in our society, this understanding of Christ, which the early friends had, these other issues come to the fore, and then all the attention is given to them as if they were, as if the solution could be found in these external problems or situations. So I think that's where the liberal friends are it's a real clear example that they really put their focus on social justice issues. And yes, there can be problems and spiritual problems extant and expressed through social problems, but knowing Christ, that's the answer, and that's at the core of what these problems, how these problems arise, is because there is a lack of knowledge of Christ.
One response I have, oh, are you not finished?
Yeah.
Oh. One response I have is that I wish to become Christ-like. And one of the things he modeled for us was going low, you might say, of being with those who were suffering physically, economically. He definitely had what they call these days a preferential option for the poor. He was not hanging out with the rich folks and trying to convert them. He was trying to model a behavior that I would like to imitate. And I think the spiritual growth can happen when we do put ourselves with the poor or the oppressed. I think some wealthy people who have, I think of Robert Kennedy, he was really very increasingly spiritual at the end of his life. And I think it came at least part because he was really engaged with poor communities and had seen and repented of some of the things he had done as Attorney General that were not in a great benefit to the oppressed. So I think that growth can happen from personal suffering and from witnessing suffering. And the closer we are to suffering, the more we can be of benefit, not because we're doing something, but because we're standing with.
I was thinking of George Mueller of Bristol. It's one of my favorite autobiographies. There's an Audible book called The Life of Trust. I like to listen to it because from conviction, one of the actions that he was led to is dependence totally on Christ for finances, and then a demonstration of the witness of the power of God to make provision for the building of many orphanages, not because he felt compassion for children and should build orphanages, but because of his relationship with Christ, leading him to this complete dependence. And sometimes I see things either legalism, in other words, I see something valuable and then I make a rule out of it and then I try to follow it, or the transforming power of the inward Christ that so changes me that I can't help but do what God wants me to do. And it seems to me, and I'm not there always, but it seems to me that anything led not of that is of works and is of man. But when we look at different friends who don't yet have Christ, they do the best they can from the conscience they have. And that is that social justice action. But without, and for me, the deeper life isn't constant. I am not, constantly breathing the breath of God and understanding and hearing his heartbeat as closely as he can hear mine. But I do have moments of that. And there's surrenders in desiring that and putting that first. And I think the outward forms of what we end up doing, whether that's visible outward socially or not, we could be doing things in a prayer closet and where no man sees, God sees, or it can be a very visible outward thing. And I think with riches, I was thinking of the parables, about the one who has so many talents and the one who has so many. And I think we get given a measure, and then it's what the inward Christ leads us to do with it that then determines if we're given more, how we steward those resources. And then ultimately, to me, it's like a wheel. We need to get to the center. If we do things on the periphery, there's dissipation of energy. If we go for that center of knowing and loving relationship with God, where we just obey that, I think we're well used in a better way.
There's no way we're each given a measure, and that's part of the utterly responsive and generative newness of a law which is not without but within, and is renewed in a specific way each moment of our lives to guide us in how we might act. So Christ is for us all. And that is a radically fluid and changing thing for us as we enter that which does not change. That is sort of the continuum of Christ, drawing us in total creativeness. Through a sort of sacramental time. I think these texts are very important because they tell you that there is a war happening. And that there is a wager that's sort of a life or death. Whether or not we respond to it. And I think many in this society are moving away from thinking of things in regards of sin and in regards of evil. And, the Quaker way typically is not to attack the sin, but to rest into the power which obliterates the evil one. Just a glance will do. And so we have that faith. And I guess that's one of the reasons why, just to go back to our last session, that Rufus Jones quote, really, I found it very disturbing. And I was very comforted by what some of you said about it, because I think in its dismissal of the miraculous, including the light, it sort of paves the way for precious souls to be lost. And in our meeting recently, someone said, "But we don't need to be saved. That's not us. No one needs to be saved." And I said, "I need to be saved." So it is a life or death sort of thing. We could lose our lives. We can lose our love for life and our meaning. So resting with Nayler has been important as an antidote to some of that. And I've just finished reading The Sorrows of Quaker Jesus. Well, some of you probably can't see that. It's really great. And there's a lot of probably, not easily available text in it, including a whole additional segment on his last words that was sort of edited out. As we know, much of the early Friends writings were edited to remove the more, intense, maybe viewed as dangerous, passionate parts of it. We could talk all day about that and what that's done to the culture of our movement. But I'll say this from Nayler, I have it in front of me. Says the early Quakers were aware that they might look crazy. They were glad if they did. "Oh, ye raging priests," Nayler exclaimed in a tract entitled "The Stumbling Block Removed from Weak Minds." "The Lord is manifesting his works, his strange works, his acts, his strange acts, by inspiring his servants to go into the streets as a sign of his wrath to come. But this generation of priests has at all times counted always what the prophets, Christ, and the apostles did as madness, and called them mad fellows." So
I like that about Naylor very much, that he was willing to go to extremes to raise the consciousness of the people around him, or to at least provoke questioning among the people around him. What is this man doing and why is he doing it? How does this odd behavior speak to me? And I wish there were more of that today. I have this image, maybe from my many years in New York City, when I was both a member of the regular liberal meeting and also an elder of the Black folks meeting, which met in a little room in the same building, and also a member of the board of the Quaker school, which is where all the rich Quakers sent their children. And there was such a difference in the sense of what Quakers were and what they were called to do in those three populations. But, well, I'm not going to go on about Nayler now.
What was the book that they showed us and referenced?
It was William Bittle's The Sorrows of the Quaker Jesus. And I have a copy.
Yeah, I'll send a picture of the cover to the group.
Thanks. And I'd like to be in touch with Jim about what's the juiciest and most relevant parts of that book, which I haven't looked at in a number of years, which I never really read all the way through.
Oh, I was thinking about you because I actually I screenshotted all the parts that reference Naylor's embrace of his persecutors.
Oh,
So it does that. And it does get also into we've all heard that when they were in prison together, what was it? Naylor offered George an apple, and George said no, kiss my, something like, I don't offer you my hand, kiss my foot, something like this.
Yeah.
And he actually did that twice, which I didn't realize. And one was after Naylor had just gotten out of prison after that whole experience. He had been in prison for 3 years. And George Fox showed up to do it again. And that time he did do it. He got on the ground and kneeled before him. So I guess I don't know what that says for the movement, except that we're all, capable of lapsing.
Yeah. So, Jim, if you would email me the page number of the reference to where he embraced his executioner and where his follower, Miles Halshead, or whoever it was, that put his tongue out to soothe the pain of the branding of the letter B on Naylor's forehead. I'd really like to distribute photocopies of those pages to the group.
Yes, absolutely. I will find that. Yeah, he said something Rich was his last name, and he said that he was as one of the dogs that licked Lazarus's body.
Oh, we're going a little bit over time. Are, and before anyone says they have to go, are we all comfortable to meet again on November 26th, which is the day before Thanksgiving?
I'll probably be with family.
Okay, well, would you like to put in an appeal for us to change the date to next week?
Not if I'm the only one who's impacted.
Okay, I guess I would keep it at the 26th.
See you next month.
Thank you all, friends.
Thank you.
Right.